All right, this is fine. Always stream push.
This presentation is lit.
I like how you did the actually lit. Right.
That's all presentation, man. Just that right there.
That's just the weapon. Don't worry about it. Right, just getting the link live. Put it live as well. Yes, yes. Turn it up.
Really? Oh, it's gonna do camera anyway.
That's fine.
Oh, does it count on YouTube? Oh, good.
There go notification. Great. Yay. Switch account. Just gonna share it on WhatsApp and we were ready to go.
Like, I can't use my phone anymore.
I think we're going to be slotted. Right. So, hello everyone. My name is Nick Gazulis. I'm the president of the Computer Society. I have planned the web development industry in 2019 presentation for everybody who's actually interested in getting into the industry or just to familiarize themselves with what the industry has to offer. I'm a person who has about 10 years of experience in web development, so that might sound a lot for a person who is 20 years old, but I started writing HTML, CSS, JavaScript when I was a very little kid. So I'm a senior web developer at an established company in Greece. I've also launched a startup recently, and I'm the CSE department student representative. So what we're going to do in this presentation is we're going to have a graph with branches and I'm going to explain everything that has to do with web development, as well as at the end of the presentation, I'm also going to offer 2 available opportunities for students to undertake. So, no further ado, let's get started. So, web development in 2019 is tricky because 3 years ago, the scenery of the web development scene pretty much was very volatile. So you had a lot of new technology coming up. So you had a lot of new frameworks and a lot of new technical documentation, organization parameters, and a lot of things like that. So a lot of things changed since 2016, and a lot of things have changed very well since 2015. And the most important bit is the availability of so many frameworks, libraries, and technologies that weren't available before. So this is what we're going to start looking at, just starting right now. But before we do that, the most important thing to know is the basics. So no matter which route you take, whether you want to be a front-end web developer, a back-end web developer, or full stack, it doesn't matter. You have to know these basics. So the basics are the basic terminal usage, basically SSH, so you can connect the server. And the terminal is obviously not just for the Mac and Linux, it's also for Windows. So those are links to the videos. So this is going to be, at the end of the presentation, going to be the links sent to everybody. And you'll be able to click on the links right on there and get to learn everything you need to know. So GitHub basics, GitHub is a very important thing. There's something we're going to cover in the upcoming presentation with Python. So I'm going to show you how you can work with that as well during that presentation. Learn how client and server talk to each other. So how can client communicate with the server? For PHP, let's say for LAMP stack means Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. In that stack, what you have is PHP running within your HTML and communicating with the backend. So anything you write in PHP code does not show up on the front end, but it gets executed on the backend and produces a result. RESTful web services get most brutally requests. So this sort of service allows you to asynchronously trade data and data information. It's very useful when you want to use that into an API. that you want to be connected with a database in order to produce results asynchronously, which means you don't have to wait for some other stack of tasks to be completed before you get the result. This is something that happens with Facebook and React.js. They use that on the view controller. This is something I'm going to look in a bit. And finally, domain name and DNS basics. Those are the basics network fundamentals that you need to know when you are doing web development. Because this allows you to actually prove the server online for people to see. You associate an IP address of a machine to a codified domain name, and then when you type a domain name, it's essentially pinging that machine and it's getting the content available on the server. It's going to come through HTTP requests. So this is very important thing to know. And DNS allows you to create to actually manipulate a lot of things as far as the domain is concerned. You may have a range of subdomains or a range of other servers that you'd like to use as backups. DNS, domain name server service, is where you need to actually start working on in order to implement all these features, especially when you deal with load balancers and stuff like this. So once you know the very basics that you need, the next thing to do is just talk about the front end, which is the thing you see actually at the very beginning. Any website you go, you don't see the backend code, you see the front end. So this is very important thing. I'm not talking just about design, I'm talking about what people are going to see. Because if you only worry about the backend and you don't worry about the front end, and you're a sole developer, then you're probably not going to get the best user experience. So the basic front end right over here splits into other branches. So we've got HTML. HTML is important because that's the standard in 2019. XML is no longer very popular. It used to be quite a lot of years ago where people used XML structures, and some of the XML features were inherited over HTML4 and might be using HTML5, although it's not advised, it might be deprecated as of now. So those features are just like putting backslash at the very end of the image element, for example. So this is just one example of XML being used in HTML. What we care about HTML is HTML5. That's the industry standard in 2019. It's the industry standard ever since 2014, 2015. That's when it started becoming the standard. So with HTML, it's pretty much the structure, the skeleton of the website. That's why you use HTML for, is what you care about. So you create a structure the way you want to structure a web page, and then you need to style it, because just by having structure, it means you see nothing but letters and links, and you don't have multimedia in there, except for pictures. But you can actually put layouts and grid stuff like that. This is where CSS comes from. So CSS, the most recent, let's say, it's also recent. CSS3 is a standard as well. So the basics is to learn just the basic CSS commands. Well, not command, rules. They call CSS rules. So once you learn the basic rules, you can use extra new features available for CSS in the latest implementations. One of those is Flex. Flex is short for flexibility, flexible boxes. So this is what the layout grid and flexbox allows you to do. It allows you to, instead of writing manual code to create your own grids, you already use CSS3 certified, let's say in quotes, grid and flexbox features. So you can use 3 lines of code to centralize vertically and center some division or some section within that, without having to write any other extra code to account for the exterior model. So, responsive design, also known as video queries. So the websites in 2019 must be responsive. You cannot hire separate developers to do separate websites, because this is too much cost to bear for an enterprise, for a company, for you. So you don't want your website to have different versions, unless it's specified in the specs and you have something crazy that you're doing, or something specific that requires separate websites to be mobile and desktop. But usually, 99% of the cases, in my experience, what you need to do is all you have to do is just use media queries. So media queries, what media queries do is they put constraints onto the resolution of the window that you have opened. So let's say you got a 1080p display, that's desktop, right? So what if you wanted to cater the design of the website to be both for the desktop and tablet? If you want to do that, that would be very easy. You just put a media query and you limit that query to 768 pixels, which 768 pixels is the standard for tablet devices. Now, if you want to do mobile, that's also possible. So all you have to do is then include another query, another media query. So you put a constraint of maximum resolution of 425 pixels, and that would just work. And you have to adjust your CSS rules to actually match that. Now, this is all the basic CSS. Of course, there's new documentation, new, let's say, paradigms, departments that have to match the new industry. This is something I'm going to talk in a bit. I actually worked on a thing called SMA CSS, which I'm going to explain what it's that in a bit. Now, once you're done with the actual design, well, the styling part of the skeleton, of the structure, the HTML, then you need to make it more interactive. And when we talk about interactivity in front end, we're talking about JavaScript. That's the dynamic component that powers the website. JavaScript can also be used in the backend. I'm going to cover that in a bit when we start talking about the backend. But in front end, JavaScript allows you to manipulate the structure and the stylings without having to touch either HTML or CSS, well, in a hard coding way. So the basics of JavaScript are pretty much clear. So if you know how to write code in Java or any other C family language, you'll have no issues learning JavaScript, because pretty much the difference between Java and JavaScript was because JavaScript wanted to get a lot of attention, and they just renamed their name into JavaScript. That's why they did. JavaScript has nothing to do with Java. The Java part is very completely relevant. It was just to bring up the comment. Now, querying, selecting, and working with dots. So what are those things? I'm going to start with selecting because that's the easiest thing. Selecting is when you select something particular for your website. So suppose you have a page and you want to select the part where you have your username on. Maybe like the top right corner where you have your first name, and like on Facebook, for example. So you want to select that particular thing. How do you do that? Well, you use JavaScript and you select that particular item, let's say that particular element, and then you have the ability to manipulate it in a number of ways. So you can change the content, you can change what it says. You can change its attribute values. So if it's a link, so you have a link, for example, you can change the href tag, and it's going to work. You can do that, manipulate that. And querying is pretty much almost the same thing. It just you make queries just like you do in any other language. So you can have a for loop and then if else loop, if else condition. So you can literally use the flexibility of the C family language and its components within JavaScript and apply it on web. So that's what you can do. DOM, so this is the document object model. That's what it stands for. It might sound weird. It might sound like, well, what is document object? So what is an object? So we're going to break it down into document object model into 3 words, like the meaning. So the document comes from the very first time an actual site was considered a document. That's what they used HTML back then. That's what they used to do. They stored documents. So they wrote documents up, just like you do on Word or on Google Drive, Google Docs. This is what they use HTML for. They just store documents. So that's where the document part comes from. Object allows you to consider the entire thing as an object. So it gives you the object-oriented approach. So let's say you have a square. A square has a few specific variables, some values that you can actually attribute. The square has a height and width. So those are part of the object. So the object is a square, height and width are its variables. Attributes, if you will. So that, well, attributes might be better term to use, but it just depends on which language you're talking about. So if you have these attributes, and now what an object allows you to do is have behavior. So suppose you have a square, so you have 3 attributes. So you have color, have width, height. So you have a red square. 5 by 5. A behavior or a method or a function, which are all pretty much the same thing, subroutine, Java, and stuff like that. What they allow you to do is actually add behavior to the square. So what if you wanted to rotate the square 45 degrees angle once you put your mouse on it? That's what JavaScript allows you to do. This is why the object. This is why it's an object. It allows you to actually manipulate that certain part in that certain way. Now, this is just a very basic concept, a very basic construct, just to understand in an illustrative way what an object is, without getting into very big details when it comes to more complex emails, statements, and loops and stuff like that you're going to use. They probably use an object to store an array of data in there, like JSON, for example. And modal, well, that's just modal. That's why the word stands for it. It's a modal. So it doesn't get any easier than that. When you go to the store and you want to buy 2 different modals, that's why modal is just one predefined concept that you call it. That's modal. Closure, scope, context, first-class functions. Scope, for example, closure is a big complex thing, so I'm not going to cover that because it's very, very specific. But scope is very easy to understand. So when you talk about scope, you have to understand that there's variables outside, inside, or in between. And when you want to access the exact same variable, it depends on where the variable is defined, whether or not it's defined globally or not, and you can access that way. So what does that mean? So suppose you have a variable called height outside a function. It's right on top of a function. The function side is called change height. That's what the function name is. And if you write height, declare another variable by the name height, and you give a new value, the value of height outside the scope is going to be different from the value inside the height of the value of the height inside the function. So when you try to print out the value of height within a function, it's going to print out the height that was defined within the function, not outside of it. So this is what scope does. Context and first-class functions, those are specific functions that allow you to make some certain operations in a certain way. So these are more complex, there's more towards the back-end JavaScript engineers using. So this is a bit more complex concept to understand. Now, modular JavaScript is a pattern. What a modular JavaScript does is essentially it lets you split out your code into chunks that answer specific things. Consider it a function a function design of the entire JavaScript philosophy. So it all comes into incorporating certain elements of JavaScript into that. Like if you want to have a model view controller with AngularJS, that's where modular JavaScript comes in. Now, XHR, Ajax with fetch. Now, this is not a new technology, just began to be a bit more hyped recently. Now, if you see jQuery over there and Ajax, what it does, what the difference is, I'll explain in a bit. Well, what Ajax stands for is asynchronous JavaScript. So when I talk to you about asynchronous tasks, this is what I meant as well. So what if you have a PHP page where you're processing some data from the user, right? So say you got that, and you have a button, submit. So when you submit, what essentially happens, it either reloads or goes to the actual URL you specified in the form on PHP, in the HTML form on PHP. What agent lets you do is skips the entire thing. It doesn't refresh or it doesn't go to any execution URL. It loads it, it executes that in the backend. So imagine instead of clicking submit or waiting for Facebook to reload and tell you, great, your data has been changed, you don't have to wait for it to reload or to actually make a call. All you do that is through asynchronous JavaScript. So if you use Ajax and the call is on the background, it returns a value, manipulates the document object model right there, and you see that live. So this is why when you press the live button on a Facebook post, for example, it reflects to everyone live because it's an asynchronous call and you don't have to refresh every time you write a comment. It doesn't refresh the page every time you write a comment. So this is essentially what Ajax is. And kind of jQuery, it says not really required anymore. Not required, but very, very heavily used. I'm not sure what the percentage, but it's a very, very big percentage of users are using jQuery once they're in JavaScript. Why? Because it allows you to create commands, write code, JavaScript code in a way that actually less clutter. So if you wrote a document that get an element by ID, select a document, select a certain section of the div, ID within the website. In jQuery, all you have to do is put the dollar sign within brackets and just specify what you want to select. So you get rid of document, you get rid of get element by ID. So you essentially save time and effort by doing that. Now jQuery is not just for that, it's not just for writing cleaner and more concise code without having to worry a lot about JavaScript. You could even incorporate a loop within one single keyword in jQuery, whereas you would have to write an actual loop in JavaScript. jQuery is very much used to manipulate DOM. So what I explained before, like changing a few things, that's where jQuery is the best at. And with the cleaner code that you write with less clutter, it helps a lot. So this is why I actually recommend people to learn jQuery because it's heavily used in WordPress, it's heavily used across the industry. Even though people are shifting towards Vue.js and other frameworks recently and libraries, jQuery is just good to know because if you ever want to prototype very fast something in JavaScript, and you don't want to write all this messy JavaScript code, you can use that to write more concise code. Now, finally, for the blue lines right over here, we go publish website. So uploading HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files to the website. So you can do that in a number of ways. You can either do that through an SSH, so you can have set up a security measurement, a secure connection between the client and server, and upload the files directly to the server, or you can use FileZilla, or if you have direct access to the web server, you can just upload them right there. So there's really not much to go on about it. Now, if we move on to the front end, to the more important bits, actually not important, but rather more precise bits, this is what we're going to see. This is what JavaScript looks like in 2019. This is JavaScript. It used to be this. Sorry, let's see if it's okay. Sorry, it used to be just this. And with the only difference that ES6 would be ES5. ECMAScript 5, which is a convention, so I'll talk about in a bit. And JavaScript frameworks, those are relatively new, although some of them existed, like Ember.js and Angular. Angular was one of the first to come into the market. They still are quite new concept and quite expanded. That's what happened in 2016 and 2019, well, 2015, 2019. That's where the turmoil in the web industry happened in JavaScript. This is why there's a lot bigger focus on Node.js rather than PHP. Node.js trying to get more and more essentially share of the market. Now, the front end, here's what jobs you can do if you go into the front end. If you kind of React, Vue, Angular developer, which are frameworks, all them are, well, except for React. React is usually categorized as framework, but essentially a library. Web developer, which is what I am, it doesn't specify front end or back end, so that'll be, let's say, full stack in sort of way. Yeah, that'll be a full stack. You got a front end developer, front end engineer. So the difference between those two is that front end engineer actually writes a lot of code that links to the back end. So it's not just exactly doing the back end, it's just linking that to it. The front end developer just takes over the front end. So they write HTML, CSS, JavaScript for the dynamic interaction level, and the engineer would actually try to implement some of it for probably React and Facebook, because it is that's Facebook's invention. And yeah, so that's why an engineer, the JavaScript engineer focuses solely on JavaScript. And it's not just about making the square turn right or left, it's more about providing infrastructure and code base to interact with Other backend technologies, for example, Node.js, is what JavaScript engineers do mostly. Then we go on to CSS tools and skills. Now, we talk about CSS without being the styling bit. So when you do the styling, you actually write a lot of styling code. A lot of styling code. So an example of that would be this website. This website I built. So if you want to see how cluttery it gets without using a precompiler, which somehow I'll explain right now what it is, I want you to see just how it looks like. So, yeah. So this is the code base, CSS. So 5,306 lines of code for the CSS. And if you notice while you're here, you go for example through the social, again through the social, again through the social, you get the idea. So what the precompiler allows you to do is actually implement a few key functionalities that will allow you to reduce the clutter. So I'll show you how using SaaS will allow you to make this less cluttery. So this is a precompiler. The precompiler gives you a range of coding abilities that allow you to make the code more concise in the CSS bit. So essentially it allows you to have some sort of, let's say, JavaScript elements into that, pretty much. So if we go to Code Social, right over here, instead of writing SOIC before, like again, Code Social SOIC before, so I have a copy pasting that. Let me show you how this structure could be integrated into a few lines and be made much more concise. So go with this, SOCICO, okay. And there's not that, just because there's no precursor right now running this invalid CSS, it has to go in this, you write the code in SASN, which is a version of CSS, supercharged version of CSS, and what the precompile process does is takes that code, which you wrote in that language, which is CSS supercharged with extra ability, and rename, compiles it into proper CSS code. So at the end of the day, you're still going to get this mess, but the way you write it is much more efficient because you're going to write it in a different way, the code, a more concise way, and at the end of the day, the browsers are still going to understand that. So this is how. Right. And we got a V4 here, you can see the class, and we've got an after student class as well. So this way the code is much more concise. You don't have to repeat the same thing. Just do that, you know, you're in Buddha Social, that's your, we take it into constructs that, imagine a box, so we got the outer, the biggest layer, the box, called Buddha Social. Then inside that, we got a small box, which is part of the Buddha Social, it's called SOCICO, right? And now, within that, we got behaviors, like we talk about with objects. So after and before is sort of a behavior. So you put that before and you put that after. So it's something you do before, something you do after. This way. Yeah, just knock yourself out.
Or what?
You're not missing it, don't worry.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
I'm sure you'll change the world soon.
Well, that was nice.
What's the name of the guy?
Right, so we got it before and the after. So those are the two behaviors that you can actually improve within that box. So it makes the code more concise and easier to understand. Here's just an example. Right. So those precompilers, preprocessors, there are a few of them. The most known one is SASS, which I'm using. and less. So these actually are essentially the same thing, but they have different syntax. They have different structure. What I recommend to beginners is SASS because that's something you can very easily get a grasp on, rather than less, because less doesn't use code practice and stuff like that. But one CSS you do, so it's easy to transition using the similar syntax. Here's the website, SASS language. So in here, if you type learn, if you click learn, you're going to see all the extra things you can do. You can have variables. So when you have a specific color code in CSS that you would like to reuse, and if it's not, let's say, just red and white or something, it's something more complex, you don't want to remember that color code. It's much easier to assign it to a variable and just call that variable just like you do normally in JavaScript or any other language. And it would work in CSS. In CSS, you don't have variables. Like in SASS, which allows you to write those variables, and then the system, the preprocessor, will understand that there's the link between the variable, which is a called code, and the appropriate CSS output, and just make it will just export it to CSS output. You won't have to worry about it. So this is how it looks like. This is just an example. So you've got a primary color, so that's let's say dark gray towards darkish, try to remember. You've got the font, which is the font stack. You can define the font stack right up there. So every time you want to use a specific font, you don't have to rewrite Quebec sans serif. All you have to do is just write font stack. And same thing with the primary color. Every time you want to use a primary color anywhere inside your CSS for every single element or class or ID or anything, you don't have to remember the pre, which is easy in this case, but just imagining that 3A, 4, 5, or something like that, some weird color code. You don't have to remember that anymore. You just need the variable, simple as that. Next thing, this is what I was talking about. Oh, actually, before we do that, here's the difference. This is what happens. So we got this SCSS, and this is how it's getting defined. So essentially, you can use primary color anyway. Alright, let's look at the nested syntax. This is the nested syntax, which means nested, well, it's obviously nested, it's not one inside the other. And it gives you an enormous amount of flexibility. So you have the navigation bar, so imagine a navigation bar on the top. And what you want to do is, for that specific navigation bar, include scaling rules to specific parts of it. This is what you do. But this is how it looks like in CSS. So you have to repeat now, you have to select the entire selector, use the entire selector every single time repetitively, which allows you to make a lot of errors. While here, you know that the entire section is dedicated to the navigation. So you already know that you have to worry about getting out of line or missing out things. Partials is another concept where you can call other files, just like you do a require in PHP, or just call any other file inside your HTML. That's the same concept except for style groups. And you also import other groups into the CSS form. It's like importing classes like column classes, or importing libraries in column classes. So mixing stuff like this more harder concepts, because those are object-oriented concepts, like saying inheritance is something you learn in Java. So if you learn Java and you learn inheritance, you can apply the same principles in CSS. And that's very cool, because you save a lot of time and a lot of code. Now, then you've got CSS frameworks. We've got CSS Grid, got Bootstrap, and Materialize. I think the most known one is Bootstrap. This is what I recommend you go for. This is the industry standard. Everybody's using Bootstrap. And Bootstrap is a collection of CSS and JavaScript code that allows you to create a modular website. So instead of writing your own custom navigation, you can actually use the code available already in the Bootstrap. HTML structure is provided for you. JavaScript structure is provided for you. And CSS structure is provided for you. Then all you do is just override the coloring scheme, the width, the height, if you wish to, of the navigation bar. The base code, that's the entire thing of CSS framework, is to provide you with the base to actually start working with it. That's why Bootstrap and CSS Grid is very good. Materialize is Google, I think Google's, I don't know, I think it's Google's material design sort of thing. And CSS Grid is very good as well, but like it all depends on what you want to do. My personal recommendation is Bootstrap. And now CSS organization, those are some patterns. At the beginning, I actually mentioned SMA CSS. So this is a pattern, a range of rules you can use to make structured CSS code. So we're going to take a look at it right now. Sorry. Yeah. Here's the application. So what it does, it splits out the rules of how you should structure your CSS code to make it readable, understandable, and scalable. Here's an example of base rules. So base styles, what it says, for example, they should be applied on the very top. So any base style that affects the entire website or the biggest part of the website should be at the top. Is what it says pretty much. And there are a lot of rules regarding using important and stuff like that. Well, you don't use important base because you want to override it. If you use an important tag right over there in the margin, it will override every other important unit that you then want to use in the body. Then we go to the layout rules. So the base is for the entire base of the website. It shouldn't be too long in there. So if you have a website, you're going to have a dark background throughout the entire website without changing it. Good for you. Body, background color, black. What's simple as that. But if you want to work on the layout, now that's different. So we start from the entire document page, and now we go to the layout. The layout consists of the header, the body, the container of the content we have, and the footer. Essentially, that's what you got. Now, there are also other key components that you can put. So this is the very basic structure you can have. You can split it even further. So for example, you have an article. Let's say we've got BBC. Let's take a look at how it would work. So this bit over here, the navigation, that'll be a layout. This grids, one over here, those would be layouts as well. So code for the layout would be written at that particular point for this bit. So you have, let's make it more illustrative. So we got this box, is one of the layouts, is the top story layout. We've got the next box, and then another box. And just to see that this all makes sense, the root right over here, it says layout. Layout Allison. So essentially, what they're using, they're abiding by some standards because it's easier for them to maintain the code. So if you ever hire developers, or if you ever wish to visit your website and you don't want to see, oh my god, what's my gate code to arrive? I don't understand half of it. You actually follow this simple principles, they're simple rules. Sidebar, we got so these are the exact same. Then we go modules, state, theme, and change state. Those are some extras. Like for example, module rules are talking about very specific modules. So we think here, in this layout, this is a module pretty much. We got the layout done, which is the box. The content within it could be module, if you wish. And state changing rules, those have to do with changing what appears. So if within the code you have you implement some JavaScript that checks the input, right? And that input is erroneous. It has errors in it. And you show up once somebody clicks submit, they show you an error. Something like that, some sort of this error, like there's an error. This message is a state. So you're currently in an erroneous state. You can have a confirmation message that everyone will find, a big confirmation state. Now, you have to separate the logic, the style of those into different sections. That section is called state rules. Theme rules apply generally to the entire thing. So this may not be as often used because you use state module layout. So if you want to avoid it, that's more than fine. If you consider using it, don't worry about it much. Just go ahead with the other basics. Finally, go to changing states. Changing states are what I showed you just right before, the after and the before pseudo class. So this is what the changes do. So we got this Student class, we got the media query, as well as the change I've set in the window. So once the window shrinks, and it's for mobile devices or desktop or tablet devices, that's where your queries come in. So this separate part of CSS that you're going to have to write at that point. So that would be an entirely different category. So to separate the code in that from the code you probably have in a body, something like that. All that is available on this website, and I've actually created a Kickstarter. I'm not sure if it's going to appear. There we go. SAS Kickstarter, and actually abides by the SMASS principles. So it's available on GitHub. It's already got everything implemented. So here's an example structure. How a website looks like. You'll see it. There we go. So we've got the base, for the layout, for the modules, for the states, because that's 4 different forms. Now, what it allows you to do is actually gives you a lot of flexibility. So you store all your variables inside a variables CSS file, and then you just import it into your main file, and then you start writing code in there. Essentially, the main file, all it does is just has codes, and you import all the directories of code, of standard code you're going to write. So in the layout, you have the contributor, you have the doc, you have the features, the header, and then this kind of go. So you write the code for specific stuff. It might seem like a lot of trouble to go for when you develop a single website, but if your plan is to actually scale it or make it push it into production and commercialize it, this is the way to go. This is the most recommended way to go. It actually allows you to gain the necessary skills when you're going to be interviewed for a front-end developer job. So you're going to say, I know this structure, I've been told this structure, I've checked this structure, I know how to structure it properly. CSS. So this is because a lot of companies are nowadays using less for SAS in this case. So this is a very good thing to know. And we're done with the CSS bits. Now we've got the front-end build tools for NPM scripts, Webpack, and front-end. NPM scripts are modules, web modules, that allow you to comment, which is the camera is running.
That's good.
No, it's in the front of the computer. Yep, good. Sorry. Alright, so the NPM scripts are a list of modules. So this is literally what NPM is. There's been a lot of fuss about it, what exactly NPM is. This is what NPM is. You want to search a package, do you want to integrate some sort of functionality? You want to search some sort of functionality, then all you have to do is just write it. So you want to integrate people. Check out, that's it. It's already pre-coded for you. You import that, you use its variables and functions, and you're done. You don't have to worry about making it secure or writing your own custom code. This code is already written for you. It has direct integration with people, and you can implement a payment system in just under 50 minutes. Something that would actually take you weeks, maybe, if you want to make it secure, if you want to by yourself, because there's a lot of issues, security concerns if you write it on your own. It's a very good repository. So essentially, it's a repository. It's like a GitHub or Red Notes in the use. This is what NPM is. Webpack allows you to bundle your JavaScript, your CSS into one file and minimize the size of it. It's just packing, bundling. That's about it. You don't have to do much of that. And front-end performance is just analyzing how fast your website is to the consumer. Because if a website takes 10 seconds to load, there's something literally very wrong, either with the server or with the your website, your actual file, the CSS loading, JavaScript loading, stuff like that. So the front-end performance can be measured in Google Insights. Google Insights, PageSpeed Insights allows you to check out how fast the website is. Now we've got static type checkers. So this is just a few additions to JavaScript. So just like CSS got SASS, like a supercharged version of CSS, same thing happens with JavaScript. So JavaScript has, let's say, different dialects. The most known one, which is the concept of people, which are the principles people abide by, is ECMAScript 6. That's standard. ECMAScript is a standard body that is issued all new changes for JavaScript. So ECMAScript 6 is the most up-to-date one, includes a lot of new features in that. ECMAScript 5 is still used, but most developers switch to ECMAScript 6. TypeScript is Microsoft's approach to JavaScript. So they saw JavaScript and said, why bother? Pretty much, why bother with that language? We want to make it scalable. We want to scale it. This is what TypeScript is. It allows you to supercharge your JavaScript with new content that you otherwise not be able to use. If you are not much into writing JavaScript stuff like that, and you don't want to be a JavaScript engineer, and you don't want to learn Angular, then you probably shouldn't bother with TypeScript. It's going to make your life more complex. But if you actually want to do, then that's fine. So Flow is another stuff like type checker and service walkers and functional programming. Functional programming actually, RxJS allows you to have functional programming language characteristics integrated into JavaScript. So this is a very useful thing if you write Haskell or high performance programming that require functional languages, some mathematics, something like that. Essentially, yeah. If you don't want to get into functional programming for JavaScript, don't worry about it. Now we go to frameworks. Now this is a very huge thing. I'm not going to cover all of that because that's a lot of things, a lot of frameworks. Some of them are not even worth to be looked at anymore. By the way, for example, React.js right up there. React.js is very good view controller. So it allows you to easily update the view, the DOM, which we talked about, and communicate with the backend sort of thing. Like get some response from the backend and change that real time in the front end. React.js is a library. It's not actually a framework. It's a library for building user interfaces. Facebook wants it, and essentially, yeah, this allows you to create nice views, interactive views, and to be honest, if you want to become a full stack developer, learning React might not be the best thing to do, because this is just for the view. This is just for the presentation. This is what building is option. If you want to be serious, join the market and want to be full stack developer, if you want to learn something new and so that is, let's say, hipster kind of thing, you're going to go with Vue, or you're going to go with Angular. So React.js is just Angular is model view controller. It's an MVC. React is just the V part of that. So it accounts for the view. So essentially, if you want to learn Vue, you're already going to learn React in sort of way because you use the view controller way. So I don't see a reason why you want to learn React unless it's something specific and something that you really know what you're going to do. Vue.js is a framework. Now that one is a framework, it's not a library. Vue.js is my favorite. I learned Vue.js when it first began. I've learned it. I learned the Vue.js version 2 as well. So it's very easy. If you know the basics of JavaScript, then this is very easy for you. I'm going to show you an example code. You're going to see how easy that is to actually write. Here's an example code right here. So you got a div, call out, and you got a message that you want to print. You create an object that points to the app ID, and you force data to be a message. So essentially, you'll allow interactive variables to be put inside there. This is what Vue.js does. This is just for the view right now. It's not taking anything from the backend. It's not interacting with the backend whatsoever. This is just the view. So this is essentially what you get with React. This is just a part of it, component. Now, how to use input is more. There's a bit more interesting. You get more interesting. You don't only have data that you manipulate, you also have methods that change the behavior. So you have the hello Vue.js. Well, once you put it back, you use an actual method that will request the message. So you have data interaction, and you also have data manipulation using methods. This is what a framework does for you. And now you may be wondering, how's that different from jQuery JavaScript? Well, jQuery is a library, so this allows you to interact with the backend. Well, jQuery has quite a bit of limitations in that. So for DOM manipulation, Vue.js is good. You can set up the models, you can set up a lot of things. So if you want to do something like this, I'm writing as I write. It happens in live. So this is just an example of what you can do with Vue.js. You bind the paragraph in message with the data and it updates on the spot. In jQuery, you actually have to wait for a keystroke, expect keystroke to be hit, analyze whether or not that's the keystroke is hit, whether or not the keystroke is hit, and only then grab the value of the keystroke and say that that's a lot of fun. Here, you just do it in 2 lines, in 5 lines. In jQuery, you do it in many more. In JavaScript, you actually have to write at least 15 lines to do that. Now, there's form handling, list rendering, there's a lot of things. These all can be very overwhelming at the beginning, so this is why it's important to actually understand properly JavaScript first, and then move to model view controls like Vue.js. And Angular is the same thing, sort of. It uses TypeScript. So AngularJS is Google's interpretation of model view controller. Essentially, similar thing. It uses TypeScript, as you can see here. We've still got templates like we have a method and data. And you also import components. So why bother with all these instead of just writing spaghetti code? Modularity, and this is for big projects. So if you want to maintain a proper project, or you do some big project for a company that you want it to be fast, you want it to be modular, to be understandable by the coders if somebody else takes over your work, or if somebody else joins you to do your work, so they don't have to spend a lot of time deciphering the spaghetti code you write, the JavaScript, the HTML, and PHP, all that all together. So this is where Angular and Vue.js and React comes in. Now, state management is a bit more complex. The Flux and Redux are additions to React.js. These help you manipulate states. So this is a bit more hard concept to grasp. But from the stage we talked about just a moment ago, like the methods, this gives you an extra set of features that allow you to manipulate the states within the JavaScript DOM and reflect that for the database and back. So this is more a harder concept to grasp, so this is why I'm not going to just say and insist on that. Unit testing. So unit testing allows you to test pieces of code written in JavaScript with specific criteria in specific places. Mockup is the most known one. Comma, enzymes for React. I think this is sort of new. I think it was there 2017. Yeah, 2017 or 2016 was there. It's relatively new from 2018. So it allows you to unit test, which is exactly what it means, unit test. You test the unit of the code for React. You also got Jest. I have personally never heard of Jest for some reason. I know Mockup helps you very much doing that for JavaScript to do more unit tests. So this saves a lot of time from testing in pre-deployment stage. You just test the code, you see if it works or not, if there's your criteria, and if it doesn't, you go back, you scrub it, you redo the work, and when it says good, check, it works, you just move on to the next bit of code. And it's not just like compiling a file to a form. You have certain criteria, like you say, I want the end result when I click on the button for the message to be changed to something. If it doesn't change it to that particular message, you don't want to rely on your own input, like from your eyes, what you see. You want to rely on software that can actually say, right, that message should be printing this when I click on that. So this is where you test the concept, it just throws those. And going back and line, we're going to the backend. Just before moving to DevOps. DevOps is more like infrastructure sort of thing. We're going to talk about this. Backend is very large. So you have virtually unlimited options, and all of them have their advantages and disadvantages. Whereas with JavaScript, you start with JavaScript, you don't have any alternative for JavaScript or alternative for HTML. You would use multi-line code. Backend allows you to use a very, very wide range of languages, depending on what exactly you want to do, what's the point of your website. Some, if you want to actually have mathematical, if you want your website to be improved for mathematical reasons, like do some functionalities and stuff like that, functional programming, sure. If you want to have, if you have a lot of databases, if you have databases, you have a lot of queries like Google does, you need a high performance language to use. You can't use PHP to run so many queries as you would use like Java or C# or C++. This is why they're called like Go or Rust. Java's well, but Java is slower. Let's begin with job title. Let's see what you can get into the industry. You can become a backend developer or engineer. I'm very experienced in developer engineer, the same thing just for backend. Full stack engineer developer, that's the person who does everything. So they start from the beginning, the front end, well, they might start from back end, doesn't matter when they start from the spectrum, because they cover the entire spectrum of web development. So that's what they are. Software developer, engineer, architects, those are not really linked to web development. It's just like hiring people who are good at Elasticsearch to implement database communication between the Elasticsearch database they have on Google machines and the back end of Google search engine. That's what a software engineer would do nowadays. Node.js, Python, Ruby, PHP, Net developer, those are developers specific to the backend language. So if you're a PHP developer, you're going to write PHP, you're going to specialize in backend PHP. If you're Node.js, you're going to do Node.js. Now Python, you've been wondering how is Python getting inside this picture. They use framework called Django or Flask. Those are two frameworks that allow you, they give you the ability to set up a web server that the code can be run on, and they also give you a set of tools and code base for you to actually implement your code, like run proper websites using HTML and Python in the backend. So this is a bit more complicated, but I can assure you it's very easy. Ruby, well, Ruby is was hyped, it's not popular anymore. Yeah, .NET, definitely .NET, a lot of Microsoft fans are coding in that. Node.js has been, it's not hype, it's actually having a very good trend. It has an upward strength, while Ruby is in decline. So Node.js is using JavaScript, so you learn one language and you cover the entire backend. You don't have to learn PHP, you don't have to learn Python, Ruby, or any other or anything like that. You just learn JavaScript, you write the code in front end and back end, and you're done. That's why it's getting a lot of traction. It's because you learn one language and you can cover the front end and back end, and you don't have to learn a new language. That saves time, and it also focuses on increasing your current skill set. So you don't have to be a jack of all trades. All you do is just learn one language and you can do that on front end and back end. It saves a lot of time, makes you more productive. This is why Node.js is the in that trend. Platform engineer, architect, we're starting off the web development. Pretty much we go in high level of abstraction, we engineer a platform at this point. And database administrator, that's why I said database administrator, that's not it. The database are the passion. Scripting languages. So those are the languages, that's the highest level of abstraction you're going to get in the web development. So whereas you can use Java, Scala, Elixir, Go, Rust to write more low-level code, those are the highest level code you can ever write in a language in web development. This essentially are beginner friendly, all of them. I can't say none of them are all of them are beginner friendly. So you want to get a web development, you definitely want to start with one of those, like scripting language. You don't want to mess yourself with Go, Rust. Those are very, very hard, not hard, but advanced languages. So I would say 80%, 85% people would use that and never use anything else in their lives in a web development position unless they go higher up and they wish to switch their focus. Now, Node.js, how Node.js works, Node.js is the equivalent of PHP. PHP cannot run on its own, right? It has to have Apache to run on the backend to serve the HTTP request. Node.js is the same principle. Node.js is a backend language that you can write properly, but you use Express as your Apache equivalent. That's the module that's going to serve the HTTP request. That's your web server essentially. Happy, same thing, just different development. Python, Django, that's what I talk about, Django and Flask. So those are these provide you the code base, I've said, and they also provide you with a web server, so you can run it. Ruby is a programming language, but it's not just web development, it's general programming language. Unlike Python and unlike Node.js and PHP. PHP and Node.js are web development specific languages, while Python and Ruby are general programming language. Now, Ruby has a component called Ruby on Rails. So this is the equivalent of, let's say, Django. This is what powers up the web development bit of Ruby. This is where you actually use Ruby language and code in that sort of framework. Finally, PHP has a framework called Laravel and Laravel. Laravel is the best framework out there. I've spent hundreds of hours coding Laravel. It's very great to give the structure. It's, let's say, the concept of Laravel is the same as Angular for JavaScript, except downwards for backend. So Laravel allows you to separate the design of the website in a different way, which is a higher level of abstraction, because if we go to a lower level of abstraction, then it's going to be the design, it's going to be SASS, then we're going to go to JavaScript things, it's entirely different branch. So we've got the view, we've got the controller, which is controlling the information flowing from flowing from the user to the database and feeding back. So it's the middleman with the transaction between the database and the website. And the modal is the actual database interaction. So the database create table, drop tables, select user, that's where in the book that happens or the creating database happens in the modal. So this is what Laravel does pretty much. Now, functional languages are Haskell, Scala, Clojure, and Elixir. The most known of those, I think, might be Scala and Haskell. Like Clojure and Elixir, they're also quite popular, but if you ever want to get into functional languages, you would go with Haskell or Scala, because there's a solid documentation in there. Now, when we go to high performance languages, we got Go and go Rust. This is very low level coding at this point. We've got high level, I wouldn't say medium, but it's different, but let's just for the sake of the language say medium level sort of abstraction, and then we go to low level. That's where you actually program for performance, is why it's a high performance language. So when it doesn't matter how your website looks and functions, if you have to serve millions of requests, hundreds of millions of requests, you need the code base to be fast enough to accommodate all those requests per second. This is what Go and Rust does, because they are very low-level languages. They are right there to the machine, so it's very easy. And notable other language you could use is Java with JSP. That's what I data recommended by using JSP. C#.NET, very good. People may know that as ASP.NET, so you can use ASP.NET. We also got AWS Lambda and serverless. That's an entirely different concept. So it's something that Amazon came up with, and I wouldn't say it's a prototype, but I wouldn't personally touch it because it's just for a very, very one specific purpose use. It's not recommended to use it if you want to do something general or more than very specific things. Now, the data, that's where there's a big mess right now. Back in the day, we used to have MySQL because it shipped with every Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stack. That was the only stack I know. Well, the only meaningful stack that people use. Now we got the MySQL and PostgreSQL. They're relational databases, so you have relations between them. So you write down relational databases in your in the previous term, first year. So you already know what MySQL, the advantages of MySQL and PostgreSQL are. So if you want a properly structured documentation, properly structured data set, that's your thing. Now caching, go Redis, Cassandra. That's for caching long, large data. You want to then pull out and reprocess. That's what you use it for. We've got document databases, you've got MongoDB, Couchbase, LinkedIn database. Document databases are different from relational because they essentially they don't care about relations, they care about listings. So whereas they may work in a similar way after a certain extent, they are very different fundamentally. Because once you have relational structures, whereas in MongoDB you don't have particularly relation structures. It's all about having documents stored. And I'm not talking about Word documents. It might be information that you want scientific information you want to be stored. Sometimes it's best to use that one. So I would say 98% of the cases, like if in an normal web development job, 99, maybe percent of the cases, you always work with relation database, MySQL, Postgre. But there's that 1%, if you work with specific scientific companies or something like that, you're going to use MongoDB, Couchbase, or really most of MongoDB. MongoDB is part of the new stack of, it's called mean stack. So you've got MongoDB, you've got Express.js, which we talk about in Node.js. You've got the Angular, which is the framework, and the Node.js. So that's the JavaScript technology. If you ever wish to use JavaScript, just learn solely JavaScript and do that front end and back end. It's very important to note that the integration in there, simply because it's asynchronous, and the way that the stacks of tasks work, they don't work in a stack. In PHP, you wait one request, then another one comes in, then another one comes in. So it goes in stack in order to be stacked in. In Node.js, it doesn't have like that. So you may have one stack, and it's going to be executed within 10 seconds. The program knows that, brings another stack, that one is executed in 2 seconds. This one takes priority over that one. So they have this one is being executed, and another one's being executed. If there's a big time difference. If it's the same, they're going to be executed at the same time. It just depends. Is the asynchronity there? So there's no synchronization between the tasks. They just happen at any time. So this is where Mongo comes in. Now, search engines, Elasticsearch, I've mentioned that just right before. If you have large databases, you have a lot of queries. They use search and they use Elasticsearch because Elasticsearch supports fundamentally more requests, has better implementation of processing requests than MySQL. And MySQL is still in its first share. If you're not doing anything that requires an enormous amount of data being requested every time, like you do on Google, and it's like profiles on Facebook, you still use SQL. Although you can have, although you can implement partially, you can use for specific parts of the website that don't pull a lot of requests, and then they don't have to do data, like big data. You can split the database into two sorts. You can have SQL and backend for specific bits, and then if it has to do search, you can use Elasticsearch. Graph databases, Neo4j, OrientDB is the most known one. Same concept, just for graphs. And message brokers, those are, well, they're not rather new concepts, they're just unusual concepts. So they, essentially what they do is they broker messages between databases. That's what they do. And this is as far as data is concerned. Now, whatever you choose, whichever framework you choose, you're going to need to understand package management, which is an NPM, let's say. So you put a package, put everything in one package, you serve it, and somebody else can use it, or you can use it within your firm, within your company, or something like that. Unit functional testing, we talked about that. We talked about unit testing for JavaScript. There's also unit testing for PHP and pretty much any other language out there. That's in backend, you can use that one. RESTful API allows you to make communicate with database and send, create, delete, update requests asynchronously, which means you don't have to wait for, let's say, for a stack response. That's for language. GraphQL API, same concept for graphs. Security best practices, that's a very important one. That's why you use frameworks for back and front end. You've got security. Whereas there might be security holes, but you know that if a big company works behind you, so Google works on Angular, so you know if Google got stuff, they'll fix it properly. So you don't have to rely on your own manpower to fix it. And this is a big bridge, and there's incompatibility with your own code, then you have to hire somebody who will do that for you. authentication, authorization. So this one is very important. OAuth 2, that's the most known one. The most known one. Essentially, instead of implementing your own login registration system, which you can very as well do, if you want the next layer of security, you're going to go with OAuth 2 rating modules that are available at PM. And these actually provide all the functionality you need, or the code base for the functionality you need, without compromising security. That's what OAuth 2 does. Deploy your app. Now, this is very important. If you're a small, medium, or big enterprise, you need to deploy websites to your clients in a proper manner. So you can't have the website accessible while in development via third parties. It poses a very big security risk at that point. So what you want to do is combine that with unit testing and package management and do the following. So you're going to have specific servers, pre-stage, where you from the development stage. So that's where all the developers have access to. That you write the code, you test the code, if you like it's fine, you push it to the production server. In the production server, this is what the customer sees. So at that point, if you instead of making 10 changes, 10 grand changes, you make 2 at a time that you've tested, you know good work, and you push them to the production environment, which production environment is essentially your live server. So those are the best practices, and those can be done with Docker. Docker is an actual website that supports all this sort of functionality. WebSockets is a very nice way to use. A very good application of those are using socket.io. That's a website which allows you to make your website both JavaScript-based interactive and backend-based interactive. So here's an example of socket.io. So if you want to make a messenger sort of thing, this is all the code you have to write. It is already enabled that for you. This is the website. So socket.io example. I think there should be an example right now. Chat. Yeah. So if you want to create a chat, like WhatsApp or Messenger or something like that, just a very basic version of it, the fundamental, that is all you have to do. Because everything is taken care of by the JavaScript backend and goes through some IO socket, and it allows you to do all that. So you can communicate properly without having to write lots of backend code, authorization, things like that, because you just use rules to build it for you. Finally, we've got ORM data management. ORM is a very interesting concept. It's object relational mapping. So object relational mapping is considering data sets, especially for MySQL in Laravel. They use Elephant ORM, that's what I use. So essentially what happens here, you treat your data sets as objects. Like we talk about the shapes and things, the shapes like it has height, width and stuff like that. Same thing for the database. So consider a table to be an object. And the function of an object of a table would be to create a column or to update a column. No, to create a column. So then consider a column, just another object. Inside a column, inside a row actually, you can add information to specific columns. So you could, for example, write table underscore name dot and you add the column at that specific point. So this is what allows you to do. It's more hard concept than convenient MySQL. It's also different from object-oriented SQL because here's the difference of how your procedural looks like. And I'm going to show you how talking to a database, an SQL database, would look like in Elephant or here's an example from different preschools. So let's say sorry, that's not yeah, let's take an example of select. So this is object-oriented. Let's take a look at the procedural. So procedural is just right. They're not objects, so they don't have functions. They don't have methods. They don't have attributes. So, for example, if we take a look at this bit over here, this is just function. But in object-oriented, it's going to be an object that's going to call a method. So here's the equivalent. So here we get the number of rows as a result of the result that we have query on. And right over here, this is how we do that. This thing over here says go to the result array that got onto the result object that got and get me the number of rows and compare it. So this is how easy that is. Same thing with query. Instead of writing I underscore query, doing query, you write a connection and you call the method query and you bring parameter SQL. So it takes your head off the procedural way, which is just writing spaghetti code into more structured code. But it's not as structured as ORemnets. Because here's an example. It might seem similar, but it's quite different fundamentally. So your user uses modal, you must add a new user with that name, and then we will save it. So this is what you write. Instead of write, so essentially from 10 lines, we're going to, from 10, 15 lines of procedural code, we go to half and we go to quarter. So this at a high level of abstraction, yet it still maintains that sort of proper structure that you'd expect in an object-oriented language. So this is why Elephant, well, Elephant is just a version of ORem. That's why ORem is quite important. So, good. So we're now almost done. The last thing that's going to be mentioned in web development is the server infrastructure. So you got all that. So you know the skills. You read the websites and stuff like that. How do you probably deploy it? So how is the infrastructure working? What is all that? We're going to start this entire category of terms called DevOps, development operations. We're going to focus on the infrastructure platform provider. Infrastructure platforms provide you with the core infrastructure you need to host websites. So we've got DigitalOcean, which is the simplest infrastructure. I'm using DigitalOcean. It's very beginner friendly. It's very cheap. So for a server with 1 gigabyte RAM and 1 CPU and I think it's 50 gigabytes of SSD space, you pay $5 a month. And you got your own virtual private server. It's not shared. It's your private server which you can do almost whatever you want. Now, the second thing is managed in comparison to other solutions. Now, when it's managed, this means if you got a server, somebody's going to come and help you out. AWS is more expensive. AWS, Amazon, Google Cloud. So AWS is Amazon Solutions, Amazon's infrastructure. It's quite expensive. It's quite expensive to be honest. Goddamn interface. I won't swear. Anyway, AWS, then we go Azure, Microsoft. Microsoft also providing Azure. This is their own infrastructure. So they're mainly focused on .NET, C# sort of thing, because that's their language pretty much. But you can still run Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, and pretty much anything. They just you decide what you want to do with it. And Google Cloud, same thing with Amazon. They're just jealous. You just want to have their own platform, pretty much. Now we talked about Docker. Docker is a nice app. They say it's a container sort of thing, but that's a lot of gibberish. The simple way to understand what it is just, let me show you. Right, there we go, a complete solution. So what it does is you have different kinds of solutions, right? You may have an application server, you have a database server, and then you have a load balancer that balances the traffic. So how do you do work on that? How do you put it all together, manage it properly, and have proper deployment? Well, you don't want to deploy bad code on the production because it's going to bring bad user experience. Well, you use Docker. This is what they do. You pre-stage every beginning, you combine the servers into one operational space, and you just do what you want to do. You have changes to your website, you push them from there, everything's fine. You want to roll back, you do that. Let's say this is a GitHub service. This is a GitHub sort of version of service. If GitHub wasn't a repository, that would be all. That's pretty much it. Now, I'm not going to talk about Terraform, Ansible, so they're pretty much server configuration, server management thing. So Docker, just put it in simple terms, it's your server configuration manager. That's all there is to it. It helps you along with deploying your application on the servers. Now, CI pipelines, that's a bit more hard concept to grasp because they're more specific. So here's what CI pipeline is, just to understand a nice picture, I think. Google. There we go. This is a pipeline. The pipeline is a bunch of pipes, PVC pipe that you put together. So you have a specific pipe that starts from the beginning and goes to the end. Let's say it's from the water factory to your second pretty much. This is what happens. So at the very beginning, that's where the water, let's say the equipment, is being filtered. Then you go to the deploy stage, beta. So it goes through quality filters. And finally it reaches your home, which is deployment stage, production. So this is the exact same concept in web. So you code an app, you create a platform, maybe an e-commerce, a niche, an electronic shop, e-commerce. You want to test it out. You want to test it out, maybe invite people to test it, or just one second. Yeah, you either invite people to test it, or you test it among your team. And finally, you push the production. So this is what you do with a pipeline. So to do, what's Docker then? Docker is for server configuration. This one is a pipeline that delivers a configuration for it. Then it's a solution you can apply in Docker, for example. You have hosted internal solutions, hosted unhosted on other servers. So you have hosting this sort of pipeline integration, internal solutions. You see Docker because you have your own service in it. That's the difference. Finally, you got Docker, and Docker allows you to handle small, medium, large scale infrastructures. So if you want to start small, you have Docker Swarm, Docker Cloud. This helps you configure the servers appropriately for a small website. Then you have medium scale, which also has data center universal control plane, because that's where you care about proper data handling, not code based, but infrastructure based. Finally, you've got big scale, Kubernetes, and Nexus. Now, one thing is DigitalOcean actually supports Kubernetes, so it's very useful. Kubernetes is there. That's a very strange concept. Like, what the bloody hell that means? It's an open source system for automating performance scaling and management containerized applications. You break down the application to chunks, you put them in a container, you serve them, and you manage them. That's what it is, pretty much. And you scale them. So imagine you have different bits of functionality, different bits of servers, something storage, something is a database, stuff like that. What you need to do is actually handle the growth. So if you have a demand in storage, you have to increase storage over there. You might create a new server, you might add third server, fifth server, fourth, sixth server, and so on. But you might not have the equivalent demand in the database. So you want to have appropriate, let's say, switch in growth and be able to manage it. So this is where Kubernetes comes in. So this is pretty much what we covered. This is the entire web development field in 2019. We've seen all the opportunities available. We've seen all the technologies that are available out there, how they use, how they combine together. So this is pretty much it. Do you have any questions? Good. All right. So the most interesting bit is that there's going to be two employment opportunities coming from me. So the first employment opportunity is to work at my new startup company as a developer. So you would be given 10% stake in the company as an engineer. We're looking to get £300,000 pre-seed funding. We're going to try to get £1.5 million valuation by the end of the year. So we want to actually collaborate with PSUs all across the country. So that's one of the offers. And the other offer is for every computer society member, there's going to be a weekly challenge, a weekly coding challenge for fine tuning from the society executives, and you're going to be paid if you do that job good. So the money is going to be between 20 to £50 for the coding exercise to be solved. That coding exercise is not going to be anything that's going to build next Facebook for £50. What you're going to do is essentially build some sort of micro applications, websites or Python or Java. Just let's say they're a bit harder than the exercises you get, the coding exercises you get in your module. That's pretty much it. And you're going to get paid for that. So you're going to compete against all other people for this exercise. And if you win, you get between 20 and £50. And if you're the runner-up, we're going to also give you Amazon gift cards, which are going to be supported by our department. We've been in talks with the department, and we have their support as far as financing, gift cards and stuff like that. Etc. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. That's all there is to say.
Yeah, so that's what